That is it. The Pittsburgh Steelers are finished their 2023 NFL preseason games. And with that being said, this is my final prediction on who I believe will make the Steelers' 53-man roster come week 1. The way I'm going to do this prediction is a mix of who I believe the Steelers will select to make the roster and who I believe should make it. And also based off last season. Like if they kept 7 offensive linemen, I might do it based off of that, of how many people they kept at each position last season. But let's jump into it. Starting off on the offensive side of the ball. At quarterback, this is the most obvious position and who the Steelers will keep. They'll keep 3 players at quarterback. Obviously, Kenny Pickett as the number 1, Mitchell Trubisky as the number 2, and Mason Rudolph as the number 3. Hopefully, Kenny Pickett, he's able to take that next step in the Steelers' offense and is able to show out in year 2 and help propel the Steelers to a playoff run. Mitchell Trubisky, as we see in last season, he was an immediate backup whenever Kenny Pickett had to come out of the game. He's the guy who stepped up. And now with Mason Rudolph and the new rule that the Steelers and every other team in the NFL could dress another quarterback on game day, Mason Rudolph is basically a lock to make the team, and he'll be dressing even though he won't count as an inactive or active player. He'll still be dressing on game day. Moving on to running back, this one's obvious as well. The Steelers will keep 3 running backs, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, and the third one, Anthony McFarland Jr. The first 2 were locks, already heading into training camp, preseason, all of that. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren was a given on who they would make the roster, but the third one was up in the air. But Anthony McFarland Jr. really solidified his spot during training camp and during the preseason, and basically there's no one else on the team who even has a chance to make that third spot. Even though Greg Bell, had a decent preseason, Anthony McFarland Jr. showed out and showed his speed, so he gets that third spot. Najee Harris is a power back, Jaylen Warren is a power back, and an elusive back, and Anthony McFarland Jr. is a speedster on the roster, and they complement each other really well. So those are the 3 running backs that make the roster. As for fullback, I'm going to say there's 0 fullbacks on the team. I know Connor Hayward could play fullback, but that's not his main position. But moving over to tight end, they keep 4 tight ends. Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, and Zach Gentry. So I put Connor Hayward as a tight end, not really fullback. He'll be playing a mix of positions. I believe tight end is his actual position. Pat Freiermuth is obviously a lock. The Steelers drafted him a few years back in the 2nd round. He's one of the best tight ends in the league. I would say top 5. Darnell Washington, he's a big body, someone who could block, really good in the run game. Zach Gentry, he's been on the team for a while. He has the most veteran experience as a tight end of all this group, and he's been on the Steelers and can run block, could catch a little bit as well. So those tight ends are really big. They have Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Zach Gentry, who are all very, very big wide receivers / tight ends. And then Connor Hayward, he's a smaller guy, but he could play multiple positions and be versatile. So those are the tight ends. Moving over to the wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, Gunnar Olszewski, and the last one, Miles Boykin. So the Steelers keep 6 total wide receivers on the roster. This is the one I had a very tricky time doing because I wanted to keep 5 wide receivers on the roster. The Steelers years back always used to keep 5 wide receivers only on the team, but only the last few seasons is when they started keeping 6 to 7 wide receivers. Even though I believe the Steelers should keep 5 wide receivers, because I don't see a reason why Miles Boykin and Gunnar Olszewski both need to be on the roster, but I put both of them on there because that's what I believe the Steelers will do. If I had to cut one of them, I would cut Miles Boykin and keep Gunnar Olszewski on the team, because Gunnar Olszewski, he's shown he could actually be a wide receiver. Miles Boykin, he just has not put up any production outside of special teams. And Gunnar Olszewski would be obviously the punt returner and kick returner backup to Calvin Austin and Anthony McFarland Jr. But all in all, I keep 6 wide receivers because that's what I believe the Steelers will do. And with Hakeem Butler getting cut, he made my last 53-man roster prediction, but he got cut obviously, and now Miles Boykin and Gunnar Olszewski filled the role as a 5th and 6th wide receivers. Obviously, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, all those guys are locks and should be the starter. Come game day, the actual Sunday game, Thursday game, Monday game, whatever it is, either Miles Boykin or Glenn Olszewski, just like Steven Sims last year, I believe one of them will be inactive on game day. But moving on to the offensive line. This one is different as well. This is what I believe the Steelers will do. The last few seasons, if you go back, the Steelers only kept 7 offensive linemen. But me personally, on this roster right now, I see 8 offensive linemen who are starter quality players who the Steelers should keep. And these are the 8 people that will make it, I believe. So, let's start with the starters. Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, Isaac Seumalo at left guard, Mason Cole at center. At right guard, we have James Daniels, and at right tackle, we have Chuks Okorafor. So, those are the starters. But the backups, the 3 backups I'm keeping are Broderick Jones, Nate Herbig, who they signed this offseason, and then Kevin Dotson. I believe those are the clear 8 offensive linemen and the best 8 offensive linemen on the team. I know many people think that the Steelers might keep Spencer Anderson, but I just don't see a need for him to be over Kevin Dotson or one of the other people I named, because he was drafted in the 7th round. He has no playing time in this league, so why would you keep him over someone who's been proven and has some experience in like Kevin Dotson or Nate Herbig to say? Why would you keep a guy drafted at the right tackle who could play multiple positions but has no experience? I believe that he could easily make the practice squad, that he may not get picked up by another team if he is cut, and he could be on the practice squad. Even Kendrick Green, I don't see a reason why the Steelers would keep him, even though he could play multiple positions. Because if you look at like a team like Alex Leatherwood, who the Raiders drafted years back, he was drafted in the 1st round, and no team wants him right now. So Kendrick Green, if he's cut, I believe he could easily make the practice squad as well. So that's who the Steelers keep at offensive lineman. And that does it for the Steelers' offensive prediction of who will make the roster. Now, moving on to the defensive side of the ball, we're going to stay in the trenches where we just finished off with the offensive lineman. Let's go with the defensive lineman. So, for the defensive ends, the Steelers will keep 4 of them: Cameron Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, DeMarvin Leal, and Isaiah Loudermilk. I think these are the clear 4 defensive ends that the Steelers will keep on the roster. The only other person I see that may even have a chance is Armon Watts. I believe he just has not been given an opportunity in the preseason. He hasn't really shown anything with the team. I know he's a veteran in this league. He has experience, so the Steelers might go with that because they already see what he could do on the film from his other teams he's been on. But in specific to the Steelers, I think these 4 guys I just named are the ones who will make it for the team. And moving on to the nose tackles for the Steelers, I think this one is clear as well. Montravius Adams, Keanu Benton, and Braden Fiocco. I think those are the clear 3 nose tackles that will make the roster. The only question mark I have is if Montravius Adams will make it. I know he's really good at run defense, but he hasn't really shown much for the Steelers outside of that very first season he was with the team. But I believe those 3 will make it at nose tackle. Braden Fiocco, he came over in the offseason, and I believe he'll be a huge addition to the Steelers' defense. And when he's placed in the middle of the defensive line, he absorbs multiple offensive guards, offensive centers, so he'll be able to absorb double teams and make it easy on other people. So those are the 7 offensive linemen I'm keeping this season for the Steelers. Moving over to the outside linebackers, the edge people for the Steelers, the people who get the sacks the most. This position group was easy to predict as well. We have TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and Marcus Golden. Those are the 4 edge people the Steelers will keep. In past seasons, when looking at how much edge they always kept 4 players. So they keep 4 again, and TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, those guys are locks. Those guys are the superstars and the people who get a lot of sacks on the team. And then Nick Herbig, he absolutely showed out and showed why the Steelers took a chance on him, even though he was put as an undersized player coming out in the draft. He was always a high production guy in college for getting sacks, and he showed that during the preseason. He's shown that in training camp. And obviously Marcus Golden, who the Steelers picked up this offseason, he's a guy who's had production with the Arizona Cardinals, and he's a veteran, and he knows what he's doing on the football field. So those are the 4 outside linebacker edge players the Steelers will keep for this upcoming season. I know there's guys like Quincy Roche, but I believe he'll either get picked up by another team or be on the practice squad. So moving over to inside linebacker. This inside linebacker position is tricky because last season they only kept 4 inside linebackers on the roster, but I believe this season they'll keep 5 of them, and the 5 are pretty easy to predict as well. I've been saying that's a theme. This roster is kind of easy to predict. Based off what we've seen in training camp, we've seen all through the off-season, preseason, this roster is easy to predict on who will make the roster. So at inside linebacker, we have Cole Holcomb, Elandon Roberts, Quan Alexander, Tanner Moose. So you see a theme there. All those guys are new guys. Those are 4 guys who are completely new to the roster this season. And then the 5th guy is the guy returning from last season, Mark Robinson. So we have so many new people coming to the Steelers at the inside linebacker position. It's basically like a whole redone position group for the Steelers. And then Mark Robinson is a cherry on top of the guy who's returning from last season, but he has the least experience on the league with only 2 years. This will be his 2nd season. But those are the 5 inside linebackers that I believe will make the roster for the Steelers. And they all complement each other really well as well. Cole Holcomb, he's very athletic. Elandon Roberts, the run stopper. Quan Alexander, the guy who's done it all in this league, in zone coverage, man coverage, even making tackles. Mark Robinson, the thumper. Tanner Moose, the special teams, kind of defensive play style kind of guy. So those are the inside linebackers that make the roster. And now, moving on to the defensive backs, the cornerbacks of the roster. I see the Steelers keeping 6 cornerbacks this season. They've usually only kept 5 cornerbacks, but they're keeping 6 this offseason. So, the main guys, Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, Joey Porter Jr., James Pierre, Chandon Sullivan, and the guy I put as cornerback because he was really transitioned. He's not a safety anymore. He's a cornerback, Elijah Riley. Those are the 6 cornerbacks the Steelers keep. The main and obvious ones are obviously Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, Joey Porter Jr. James Pierre makes the roster because he's been on this team a long time. He's done special teams, and he's really good at special teams, and he's a backup person for the Steelers. If Corey Trice Jr. was on the roster and he didn't get injured, I believe that he would obviously make it over James Pierre. But for now, James Pierre sticks on the team. Chandon Sullivan, he's the slot guy. Elijah Riley, he's also a slot guy. So that's the worry part about the Steelers. They only have 4 outside cornerbacks this season that they're going to be keeping on the roster. And these are the 4 guys. And then they have 2 slot cornerbacks. So that's who they're keeping. And then moving on to the safeties, the Steelers will keep 4 safeties. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Keanu Neal, DeMonte KZ, Miles Killebrew. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a superstar of the team. Keanu Neal, DeMonte KZ. Mike Tomlin and the coaching staff listed those guys as starters, both of them as starters at strong safety position. Let's see who will actually win the job. And then Miles Killebrew, he's actually so good at special teams. He always gets his hand on punt blocks. It seems like even this preseason, I remember that one game where he got his hand on the punt, and he's done it in the past. So he sticks on the roster because he's really good at special teams, and he's a captain there. Even though he wasn't given a captain role, I believe that he's the captain of the special teams and what makes them run. So those are the safeties that make the team. And now moving on to the actual special teams, the kicker, punter, and stuff like that. So the Steelers, obviously their kicker will be Chris Boswell. He's been on the team a very long time, and he's always been consistent and really good at doing his job until someone comes in and absolutely demolishes and beats him out. I believe he'll be the kicker for a while. So he's the kicker for the season. And then the punter, Presley Harvin Jr., beats out Braden Mann, and he is a punter for this season. It's pretty obvious. If you're watching the preseason, if you're paying attention to training camp, it's been reported that Presley Harvin has been so much better than Braden Mann in the competition battle. So I believe Presley Harvin, he has a bigger leg. He just needs to be more consistent, but he wins the job. And then at the long snapper position, the final position of this 53-man roster. The Steelers, they're going to be keeping Christian Kuntz. So that does it for the Steelers 53-man roster prediction. Let me know down in the comments below. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about all these roster predictions I've done at each position, from offense, defense, to special teams? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? And if you don't agree with me, tell me which player, which position you don't agree with, and who you would keep instead or cut instead. Let me know your thoughts on all of this and everything I just went over, and give me your thoughts on the game yesterday that was played. How do you feel the Steelers went up against the Atlanta Falcons? Did you like what you saw from the team? Did you not like what you saw? Let me know your thoughts on the game. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below as well. If you like Steelers content and analysis reports, like the video, turn on notifications, post notifications for this channel so you get notified whenever I post the next Steelers video of news, content, analysis, reports, highlights, everything like that. I cover everything Pittsburgh Steelers football, so if you want to stay up to date with everything your Pittsburgh Steelers as we head into the regular season, just know I'm covering all. I covered all the off season, and now it's time for the regular season. So like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications for the channel, and I'll see you guys all later. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.